Captain Ethan Voss crouched behind a metal crate, his pulse steady despite the blaring alarms. The auxiliary warship was a fortress, thick walls, auto turrets, and patrol squads searching for intruders. But Ethan wasn't just any intruder. He was a Terran Federation soldier, trained for impossible missions. His earpiece buzzed. "Captain, you've got 3 hostiles down the hall. You need to move. Fast." Ethan adjusted his grip on his plasma rifle. "Copy that. Sam, I'm going in." The hallway ahead was dim, the red emergency lights flashing in warning. The auxiliary Dominion, a reptilian species ruling half the sector, had captured a high-value prisoner. Ethan's mission was simple: break in, grab the prisoner, and get out before the auxiliary fleet arrived. He pressed against the cold metal wall, peeking around the corner. 3 auxiliary soldiers stood in front of a security door, their sharp claws tapping against their weapons. They wore dark armor, their slitted eyes scanning for threats. Ethan took a deep breath. 1 shot each. No noise. He raised his rifle, aimed, and fired. 3 bursts of blue light. 3 bodies fell before they could react. "Guards down," Ethan whispered. "I'm at the cell door." "Hacking it now," Sam replied. "Stand by." A second later, the security lock beeped, and the door hissed open. Ethan stepped inside, his rifle ready. The prisoner was not what he expected. A tall woman stood in the center of the cell, her golden skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She wore a torn royal dress, her silver hair cascading down her shoulders. Her violet eyes locked onto his. Not human. Vashari, a powerful alien race known for their empire's advanced technology and strict traditions. "You are human." Her voice was smooth, regal. "Yeah, here to rescue you." Ethan lowered his weapon slightly. "Can you walk?" She tilted her head, as if studying him. "You do not bow." "Not really my thing." He stepped forward, offering a hand. "We need to go. Now." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. It was warm, almost electric. Ethan pulled her toward the door. "Captain, you have company." Sam's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Auxiliary reinforcements inbound." Ethan cursed. Time to run. They sprinted through the halls, alarms blaring louder. Auxiliary soldiers appeared at the far end, weapons raised. Ethan fired first, dragging the princess behind him. "This way." He pulled her into a side corridor. The docking bay was just ahead, his escape ship waiting. A group of auxiliary blocked their path. Ethan's rifle overheated. No time to recharge. He reached for his combat knife, but before he could act, the princess stepped forward. She raised a hand, and a wave of golden energy erupted from her palm. The auxiliary soldiers froze in place, their eyes wide in shock. Then, as if an invisible force had struck them, they collapsed. Ethan blinked. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." She smirked. "You already are." Before he could ask what she meant, they reached the docking bay. His ship, the Raven's Claw, was prepped for takeoff. Ethan led her aboard, slamming the door shut as laser fire rained behind them. "Sam, punch it." The ship roared to life, lifting off just as the auxiliary warship's defense cannons locked onto them. Ethan fell into the co-pilot's seat, exhaling. That was close. The princess sat gracefully, her gaze never leaving him. "You do not know who I am, do you?" Ethan frowned. "Someone important, obviously." She leaned forward, her violet eyes glowing slightly. "I am Princess Zyra of the Vashari Empire, and by saving me, you have declared yourself my savior." Ethan frowned. "Okay, and what does that mean exactly?" Zyra's expression turned serious. "By our sacred law, a savior is bound to their rescued one. You, Captain Ethan Voss, are now my chosen consort." Ethan stared. "Wait, what?" The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the auxiliary fleet, but Ethan had a sinking feeling that his problems were only just beginning. Ethan Voss had survived countless battles, escaped war zones, and faced enemies far worse than the Xilari. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this. He sat in the pilot's chair of the Raven's Claw, staring at Princess Styra, the golden-skinned alien woman who had just declared him her chosen consort. "Let's back up for a second," Ethan said, rubbing his temples. "I saved you from a prison cell, sure, but how does that turn into marriage?" Sarah folded her arms, her violet eyes watching him like he was a slow student. Vasheri law is clear. If one saves a royal from death or capture, the savior is honored as their bound partner. It is a sacred tradition. Ethan blinked. That's the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Zyra's expression darkened. You insult my people's customs. No offense, princess, but humans don't work that way. I saved you because it was my mission, not because I was looking for an alien wife. Zyra tilted her head slightly. And yet you did save me. The law is final. You are my consort now. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but his ship's console beeped. His second-in-command, Sam Carter, appeared on the holographic screen, her short brown hair messy from stress. "Captain, what the hell did you do?" Sam asked. "I just picked up a transmission from the Vasheri fleet. They're calling you His Eminence and preparing an escort." Ethan groaned. "I didn't do anything. Apparently, I accidentally proposed to a princess." Sam's eyes widened. "Wait, is this a joke? Please tell me this is a joke." "I wish." Before Sam could respond, the ship's sensors lit up. A massive fleet of golden Vasheri warships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Raven's Claw. Unlike the Xilari's brutal, spiked warships, these vessels were sleek, elegant, and very well armed. A deep, commanding voice came over the comms. "Terran vessel, this is Grand Admiral Kaler of the Vasheri Imperial Fleet. Lower your shields and prepare for royal escort." Ethan muttered a curse under his breath. "Princess, tell them this is all a big misunderstanding." Zyra simply smiled. "It is no misunderstanding." Ethan shot her a look. "You are enjoying this, aren't you?" She didn't deny it. The Raven's Claw docked aboard the Vasheri flagship, Celestial Honor. As Ethan and Xaira stepped onto the grand platform, dozens of Vasheri nobles in shimmering robes bowed in respect. Towering royal guards in golden armor stood at attention. A tall, stern-looking Vasheri man with silver markings on his face stepped forward. Grand Admiral Kaler. His gaze locked onto Ethan with suspicion. "Human," Kaler said slowly. "The Empire welcomes you. Though many of us question how one such as you could be worthy of our princess." Ethan forced a smile. "Good to know I'm popular." Kaler ignored the sarcasm and turned to Xaira. "Your father, the Emperor, has summoned you both to the capital." Ethan tensed. "Oh, great. More aliens who want me dead." Xaira glanced at him. "You saved me. My people will respect you." Ethan sighed. "That's not how respect works, princess." The journey to the Vasheri homeworld, Elindra, was smooth but tense. Ethan spent most of the time in his quarters, ignoring the constant bows and formal greetings from the ship's crew. Sam messaged him from the Raven's Claw. "You holding up, Captain?" "Barely. I think I'm trapped in an alien rom-com." Sam smirked. "Well, at least she's pretty." Not helping. Before Ethan could complain further, the ship exited hyperspace. Through the window, he saw Elindra, a breathtaking world with golden oceans, floating cities, and towering crystalline spires. But as they descended, Ethan's gut told him something was wrong. The imperial palace of Elindra was massive, built from white stone and glowing gold veins. Thousands of Vasheri citizens gathered in the streets, cheering for their princess's return. But behind the celebration, Ethan noticed watchful eyes. Nobles whispering, warriors gripping their weapons too tightly. Zyra noticed too. Her face remained calm, but her fingers tightened slightly at her sides. Inside the throne room, The air was thick with power. At the center sat Emperor Velos, Cyrus' father, a towering man with glowing golden eyes. His presence alone felt heavy. Ethan straightened his back as the Emperor's gaze pierced through him. "You are the human who saved my daughter." The Emperor's voice was deep, unreadable. Ethan nodded. "That's right." A long silence. Then, the Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Then you are also the one who must prove his worth." Ethan frowned. "Excuse me." The Emperor stood. "The Vasheri do not accept weak mates for our royal blood. If you wish to remain at my daughter's side, you must face the trials." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Trials? What kind of trials?" Kaler smirked. "Combat, of course." Ethan glanced at Zyra. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" Zyra's lips twitched in amusement. "Did I not say you were already on my bad side?" Ethan groaned. "I hate aliens." The nobles laughed, but Ethan didn't miss the danger in their eyes. They wanted him to fail. And if he did, he had a feeling failure meant death. Ethan Voss had fought space pirates, rogue AI, and entire squads of Silari shock troopers. But standing in the imperial throne room of the Vasheri Empire, facing a crowd of alien nobles who all wanted him dead, he was starting to think this was his worst mission yet. The Emperor's golden eyes burned into him like twin suns. "You will prove your worth in the trials." Ethan sighed. "And if I say no?" A noble standing nearby scoffed. "Then you disgrace the princess and shall be exiled, if you are fortunate." Ethan shot a look at Princess Zyra, standing beside him in her royal armor. "This is really a thing." Zyra shrugged slightly. "I did warn you." Ethan muttered under his breath. "Yeah, just forgot to mention the fight for my life part." The Emperor motioned to a warrior standing at his side. Lord Razik, a towering Vasheri noble with obsidian black armor and a smirk that could kill. "The first trial will be against Lord Razik. A simple duel. Prove yourself or leave in disgrace." Ethan glanced at Razik. The guy was built like a war tank. Great. The trial arena was a massive circular chamber made of crystal and gold, with thousands of Vasheri spectators watching from the stands. Ethan rolled his shoulders as a group of attendants strapped light armor onto him. It was sleek, flexible, and probably useless if Razik hit him too hard. Across from him, Razik grinned as he unsheathed a massive plasma blade that crackled with red energy. Ethan was handed his own weapon, a Vasheri dueling sword, thinner and sharper than a human blade. He gave it a quick test swing. Not bad. Above them, the Emperor's voice echoed through the arena. "The battle begins. Let the human prove himself worthy, or fall." A loud gong rang. Razik charged. Ethan barely dodged as the massive plasma blade slashed down, carving a deep mark into the stone floor. He twisted to the side, bringing his own sword up, but Razik was fast, too fast for someone his size. A fist slammed into Ethan's chest, knocking him backward. He hit the ground hard. The crowd laughed. Razik smirked, twirling his blade. "Is this the best humanity has to offer?" Ethan coughed, rolling to his feet. "Oh, buddy, you just made a mistake." Razik came in for another strike. But this time, Ethan was ready. He ducked under the blade, moved inside Razik's guard, and slammed his elbow into the Vasheri's ribs. The larger warrior grunted, surprised. Ethan didn't stop. He spun, bringing his blade across Razik's leg, cutting deep. The alien stumbled, his confident smirk gone. The crowd gasped. Razik roared, swinging wildly, but Ethan dodged each attack with perfect precision. He could feel it now. The warrior's rhythm, his mistakes. One last move. Ethan stepped inside Razik's swing and smashed his hilt into the warrior's face. Razik hit the ground, dazed. Ethan pointed his blade at Razik's throat. The arena fell silent. Then the Emperor rose from his throne. Impressive. Ethan kept his breathing steady. "Did I pass?" The Emperor smiled slightly. For now. After the battle, Ethan returned to his chambers, exhausted. He was cleaning his wounds when Syra entered, arms crossed. "You fought well." Ethan snorted. "Thanks for the warning, by the way." Syra's lips twitched in amusement. Would it have changed anything? Ethan shook his head. Probably not. She studied him for a moment. "You are different from the others." "Yeah, we humans tend to be full of surprises." Before Syra could respond, the palace alarms blared. Ethan jumped up. Now what? A royal guard rushed into the room. "Your Highness, the auxiliary fleet has arrived. They demand an audience, or they will attack." Ethan and Syra exchanged looks. Things had just gotten worse. The piercing sound of alarms echoed through the imperial palace as the Vashari guards rushed to their battle stations. The golden halls, once filled with elegance and tradition, were now alive with urgency. Ethan Voss barely had time to process what was happening before Princess Syra turned sharply to the royal guard who had entered their chambers. "How many ships?" Syra demanded, her regal tone unwavering. The guard bowed slightly. "An entire auxiliary battle fleet, Your Highness. Their commander demands a meeting with the Emperor, or they will open fire." Ethan frowned. "They tracked us." Syra's expression remained calm, but Ethan could see the tension in her posture. They would not risk attacking the homeworld without a reason. She turned to him. "They want something." Ethan's gut told him exactly what it was. Or someone. Syra's eyes met his. She didn't need to say it. The auxiliary were here for her. The Imperial War Council gathered in the throne room, where massive holographic displays showed the enemy fleet hanging over the planet like a storm. The auxiliary flagship, an enormous war cruiser shaped like a spiked dagger, loomed at the center. Admiral Kaler stood beside the Emperor, his arms crossed. "This is a provocation, nothing more. We should launch a preemptive strike and wipe them from the sky." Ethan leaned against the long war table, watching the tactical displays. "You fire first, and this turns into a full-scale war." Kaler scoffed. "It already is." The Emperor raised a hand, silencing the argument. "Open a channel to the auxiliary commander." A second later, the hologram flickered, and auxiliary warlord appeared. He was a towering reptilian figure, his dark green scales lined with jagged scars. His cold yellow eyes locked onto Ethan immediately. "Human." His voice was deep, filled with disgust. "You have stolen what belongs to the auxiliary dominion." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Pretty sure I didn't steal anything." The warlord bared his sharp teeth. "You took the princess from our custody. That was an act of war." Syra's expression darkened. "Your people kidnapped me. I do not belong to the Dominion." The warlord chuckled. "The Dominion does not forget its enemies, princess. We will have you, one way or another." The Emperor's golden eyes flashed with anger. "You dare threaten my daughter in my own court." The warlord grinned. "Surrender her now, and no blood will be shed." Ethan folded his arms. "Yeah, see, the thing about that is, no." The warlord's smile vanished. "Then you have chosen death." The transmission cut out, and alarms blared across the palace. The auxiliary fleet was powering their weapons. Outside, the skies of Elindra burned as golden and crimson ships clashed in the atmosphere. The Vashari fleet fought fiercely, but the auxiliary had superior numbers. Ethan stood with Syra and Admiral Kaler on the palace balcony, watching energy blasts light up the heavens. "We won't last long," Kaler muttered. "Their fleet is stronger than expected." Ethan fought fast. The auxiliary were after Syra, not the planet. That meant they had a primary target. If we take out their flagship, the fleet might back off. Asterisk, asterisk. Kaler frowned. "Easier said than done." Ethan smirked. "I've done crazier." Syra turned to him. "You have a plan." Ethan glanced at the Raven's Claw, his ship still docked in the palace hangar. "Yeah, but you're not gonna like it." Minutes later, Ethan sat in the pilot's seat of the Raven's Claw, powering up the engines. Zyra sat in the co-pilot's seat. "This is reckless." Ethan grinned. "Yeah, that's kind of my thing." The plan was simple. Fly straight at the Xilari flagship, get past their defenses, and disable their command systems from the inside. Zyra sighed. "I cannot believe I am doing this." "Welcome to human problem-solving." Ethan hit the thrusters, and the Raven's Claw blasted off into the battle. The Xilari flagship loomed ahead, its cannons locking onto them. "Incoming fire," Kyra warned. Ethan rolled the ship hard, dodging plasma blasts as they weaved through the chaos. "Hang on." Ethan yanked the controls, sending the Raven's Claw into a dive, barely skimming the ship's surface. They dodged turret fire, finding a weak point near the docking bay. Ethan smashed a button, deploying EMP. A pulse of blue energy rippled outward, disabling the enemy's security systems for exactly 30 seconds. Ethan grinned. "Let's move." Inside the Xilari flagship, alarms blared as Ethan and Zyra fought through squads of reptilian soldiers. Zyra's hands glowed with golden energy, sending Xilari warriors flying with bursts of telekinetic force. Ethan fought the old-fashioned way, plasma rifle in one hand, combat knife in the other. They pushed toward the command bridge, where the warlord waited. As they stepped inside, the warlord laughed. "You think you can stop us?" Ethan smirked. "Yeah, actually." Before the warlord could react, Zyra unleashed a massive energy blast, knocking him off his feet. Ethan sprinted to the control panel, quickly inputting a command override. And done. The Xilari fleet suddenly powered down, their weapons going offline. On the palace balcony, Admiral Kaler's eyes widened as he saw the Xilari ships shutting down mid-battle. The Vasheri fleet launched a counterattack, forcing the enemy to retreat. Back on the flagship, Ethan turned to Zyra. "Told you I had a plan." Zyra exhaled, shaking her head. "Reckless, but effective." Ethan grinned. "That's what I do best." As they returned to Elindra, Ethan knew one thing for sure. His problems were far from over. The battle was over, but the tension inside the imperial palace was just beginning. Ethan Voss sat in the throne room, his arms crossed as dozens of Vasheri nobles whispered among themselves. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with disgust, but most simply wanted him gone. Princess Dvyra stood beside her father, Emperor Kelzar, who sat on his golden throne, studying Ethan in silence. His piercing golden eyes held no emotion, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "You have interfered in Vasheri affairs, human." Ethan sighed. "Yeah, you're welcome for that, by the way." A few nobles gasped at his disrespect, but the Emperor remained calm. "You disobeyed our customs. You risked war. And yet," he leaned forward slightly, "you saved my daughter." Zyra spoke up. "Father, Ethan is not the enemy." One of the nobles, Lord Razik, the same warrior Ethan had defeated earlier, stepped forward. "He is still unworthy. He has not completed the trials." Ethan groaned. "Oh, come on. I literally saved your empire from an invasion." Razik sneered. "That does not mean you are fit to marry the princess." Ethan threw up his hands. "I never wanted to get married in the first place." Sarah shot him a sharp look, and Ethan froze. The room went dead silent. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Is this true?" Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly feeling like he was standing in front of an execution squad. Zyra crossed her arms. "Ethan." Ethan sighed. "Look, it's not that Zyra isn't great, but I'm a human. I don't exactly fit into all this royal nonsense." He gestured at the massive throne room. "Besides, we barely know each other." One of the nobles smirked. "Then there is no reason for him to remain here. The human should leave." The Emperor raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Enough. He turned to Ethan. You do not wish to marry my daughter. That is your right, but you are still bound by honor. Ethan frowned. Honor. The Emperor stood. You saved the princess. That means her life is tied to yours. If you do not wish to marry her, then you must remain as her protector. Ethan blinked. Wait. What? Zyra nodded thoughtfully. A life debt. It is an old tradition. Ethan groaned. You people and your traditions. The Emperor's gaze hardened. It is final. New problems, same Ethan. A few hours later, Ethan stood on the palace balcony, watching the stars. He had come to Vasheri space hoping for a simple mission, and now he was stuck as the bodyguard of an alien princess. Typical. Footsteps approached behind him. Zyra. She stood beside him, her elegant golden armor reflecting the moonlight. You do not seem pleased. Ethan exhaled. I'm not exactly the bodyguard type. Zyra smirked. That is strange, considering how often you have saved me. Ethan chuckled. Fair point. She studied him for a moment. I know this is not what you expected, but the Xelari will not stop. They will come for me again. And now, they will come for you too. Ethan sighed. Lucky me. Zyra hesitated, then spoke softly. You do not have to stay. Ethan looked at her, surprised. She continued. If you truly wish to leave, I will tell my father. I will release you from the life debt. Ethan thought about it. He could walk away, go back to his old life, smuggling, fighting, barely scraping by. But the Xelari weren't just after Zyra. They were after him now too. If he left, he'd be looking over his shoulder forever. And besides, Ethan glanced at Zyra. He wasn't sure he wanted to leave. He smirked. You think I'm gonna let you fight all your battles alone? Not a chance. Zyra raised an eyebrow. So you accept? Ethan sighed. Yeah, guess I'm your bodyguard now. Zyra nodded, satisfied. Then we should prepare. The Xelari will return. Ethan grinned. Good. I was starting to get bored. As they stood together under the alien sky, Ethan realized something. He might not have chosen this life, but maybe, just maybe, it had chosen him. The imperial palace was quiet at night, but Ethan Voss knew better than to relax. Standing outside Princess Zyra's royal chambers, he leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his plasma pistol resting in its holster. His instincts told him something was wrong. The kind of feeling he had learned to trust over the years. Something was coming. He checked the time on his wrist device. 3:00 a.m. Zyra had retired hours ago, but Ethan knew the Xelari wouldn't wait forever to make their next move. And he was right. A faint noise caught his attention, a soft, unnatural hiss. His fingers tightened around his pistol as he turned his head slightly. Shadows moved along the ceiling. Ethan didn't hesitate. He drew his gun and fired. The blue plasma bolt ripped through the darkness, illuminating the figure clinging to the ceiling. A Xelari assassin in dark armor, its reptilian eyes glowing yellow. The assassin dodged midair, twisting its body unnaturally, avoiding the blast. Then, with terrifying speed, it lunged toward Ethan. Ethan dropped to one knee, barely dodging a razor-sharp blade as it slashed the air where his head had been a second ago. He fired again, direct hit to the assassin's chest. But instead of falling, the assassin vanished in a cloud of smoke. A cloaking device. Ethan gritted his teeth. Of course they have stealth tech. The palace alarms blared as more figures emerged from the shadows. 3 more assassins, each moving like ghosts. Ethan hit his communicator. Zyra, wake up. We've got company. From inside the chamber, he heard a muffled groan, followed by the sound of weapons powering up. Good. She was ready. The fight for the princess. The doors to Xera's chamber burst open, revealing the princess in full battle armor, her golden energy blades glowing in her hands. Her eyes locked onto the assassins. You dare enter my home. One of them snarled. The Dominion claims what is theirs. Syra's expression hardened. I do not belong to the Dominion. With a burst of energy, she lunged forward, slashing at the nearest assassin. The air cracked with golden light as her blade met steel, the force sending her attacker stumbling back. Ethan didn't have time to admire her combat skills. Another assassin was coming straight for him. He fired at the enemy's legs, forcing it to dodge. But before Ethan could follow up, the assassin threw a blade at him. He barely ducked in time. Too close. The assassin pressed the attack, swinging its curved daggers in a deadly flurry. Ethan blocked with his forearm guard, then drove his knee into the assassin's gut. It barely staggered. Damn, these guys were tough. But Ethan had one advantage. Unlike the Xilari, he fought dirty. With a smirk, he reached into his belt and tossed a flash grenade at the assassin's feet. Boom! The explosion of light blinded the Xilari, giving Ethan enough time to shoot twice. Once in the leg, once in the chest. The assassin collapsed. One down. Ethan turned to see Syra holding her own, fighting two assassins at once. She dodged a strike, twisted, and sent a wave of golden energy blasting her enemies across the room. Ethan fired another shot, taking down the last assassin as it tried to attack her from behind. Silence. The palace guards finally arrived, weapons raised, but the battle was already over. Zira exhaled, looking around at the fallen assassins. Ethan holstered his pistol. You're welcome. She smirked. I had it under control. Ethan laughed. Yeah, sure. That's why you needed my help. Before she could respond, a voice boomed from the palace corridors. What happened here? The Emperor had arrived. The truth revealed. The throne room was tense. Zyra and Ethan stood before the Emperor, along with Admiral Kaler and several other high-ranking officials. The Emperor's expression was unreadable. Xilari assassins, in my own palace. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the rage underneath. Admiral Kaler clenched his fists. This means only one thing. They have spies inside the palace. Ethan nodded. They knew exactly where to strike. The Emperor turned to Ethan. You fought well. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Is that a compliment? Kaler scoffed. Do not let it go to your head, human. Vzera ignored them, focusing on the real issue. The Xilari will not stop. Ethan sighed. Yeah, I figured that part out already. The Emperor stood. We must prepare. The Dominion will strike again, and next time, it will not be assassins. Thyra looked at Ethan. You still wish to stay? Ethan grinned. I did say I was your bodyguard, didn't I? She nodded. Then we must fight together. Ethan chuckled. Guess I better start liking this place. As they left the throne room, Ethan knew one thing for sure. The real battle was just beginning. The war horns echoed through the imperial palace, a sound that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. Standing atop the palace walls, he gazed at the night sky, now filled with enemy warships. The Xilari had returned, but this time they weren't hiding in the shadows. They had come for war. Ethan turned to Princess Syra, who stood beside him, her golden armor gleaming under the moonlight. Her eyes were focused, determined. They won't stop, will they? Ethan asked. Xira shook her head. No, they believe I belong to them, and they will burn this empire down to take me. Ethan sighed. Guess we better prove them wrong. Behind them, the Vasheri army prepared for battle, warriors in shining armor, armed with plasma rifles and energy blades. The palace defenses were active, with turrets locking onto enemy ships. The Xilari warships hovered above the city, their weapons charging up. A deep, rumbling voice boomed from their leader's flagship, broadcasting across the battlefield. Surrender the princess, or we will reduce this palace to ashes. The Emperor stood on the balcony, his voice firm. Come and try. The war had begun. Storming the palace, The auxiliary attack started with a massive energy blast, striking the palace shields. The force shook the ground beneath them, but the defenses held strong for now. Ethan drew his pistol. Here they come. From the enemy ships, drop pods crashed into the courtyard, opening to reveal auxiliary warriors, tall, reptilian creatures with dark armor and razor-sharp weapons. The palace guards opened fire, and the battle exploded into chaos. Ethan ducked behind a fallen pillar, shooting down a charging auxiliary soldier. They don't stop coming. Tyra spun in the air, slashing through two enemies with her energy blades. Then we don't stop fighting. Ethan grinned. I like the way you think. More auxiliary stormed the gates, pushing forward with brutal force. One of them, a massive warrior in red armor, locked eyes with Ethan and charged, swinging the glowing axe. Ethan barely dodged, rolling to the side as the axe slammed into the ground, cracking the stone. Okay, big guy, let's dance. The auxiliary warrior roared and swung again. Ethan raised his pistol and fired 3 precise shots. One to the knee, one to the shoulder, and a final shot to the head. The warrior collapsed. Ethan exhaled. Yeah, that's what I thought. But there was no time to rest. Above them, the auxiliary ships broke through the palace shields, unleashing waves of reinforcements. Zyra wiped blood from her blade. We must get to my father. Now. The Emperor's last stand. The throne room was under attack. Auxiliary soldiers had broken through the palace walls, fighting through the grand halls. The Emperor, still standing tall, led the last of his elite guards in a desperate defense. Ethan and Sarah rushed in, cutting down enemies as they went. Father, Syra called out. The Emperor turned, his golden armor glowing from the fires around him. You came just in time. A deep, growling voice echoed through the throne room. It will not save you. From the shadows, the auxiliary warlord stepped forward. He was twice the size of any soldier, his dark red armor pulsing with raw energy. His yellow eyes burned with fury as he raised a massive war blade. The princess belongs to us. The Emperor raised his own weapon. Over my dead body. The warlord grinned. That can be arranged. The two titans clashed, their blades colliding in a flash of energy. The force of their battle shook the palace walls, sending cracks through the marble floors. Ethan and Xyra fought to defend the throne, cutting through waves of enemies. But the auxiliary were too many. Xyra turned to Ethan. We must end this. Take out their leader, and the army will fall into chaos. Ethan nodded. Then let's do it. The final blow. The Emperor was holding his own, but he was outmatched. The warlord was stronger, faster, and his blade glowed with dark energy. With a brutal strike, the warlord knocked the Emperor back, sending him crashing against the throne. Ethan cursed. We have to help him. Zyra's eyes blazed. Together. She lunged first, attacking the warlord with a flurry of strikes. The auxiliary leader blocked each one effortlessly, laughing. You are skilled, princess, but you cannot win. Ethan appeared at his side. What about both of us? Before the warlord could react, Ethan pulled the plasma grenade from his belt and shoved it under the warlord's armor. The warlord's eyes widened. You. Boom. The explosion sent him flying, his armor cracking from the force. Zyra didn't hesitate. With a final deadly slash, she severed his head from his body. The throne room fell silent. The remaining auxiliary warriors froze, their leader dead. Then, one by one, they retreated. The battle was won. A new future. The next morning, the Vasheri Empire celebrated victory. The auxiliary fleet had retreated, their forces broken. Ethan stood on the palace balcony, watching the rising sun. He had survived. Zyra joined him, smiling. You fought well. Ethan chuckled. Not bad for a human, huh? She nodded. Not bad at all. The Emperor approached, his expression softer than before. Ethan Voss, you have saved my daughter. My empire and my throne. What reward do you seek? Ethan thought for a moment. A ship, a fortune, freedom. He looked at Zyra, then back at the Emperor. I think I'll stick around. Zyra raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Ethan smirked. Yeah, somebody has to keep you out of trouble. She laughed. Then I suppose you are truly one of us now. As the sun rose over the Empire, Ethan realized something. He had come here by accident. But maybe, just maybe, this was where he was meant to be.